You are listening to the Love and Money Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Purple. Thanks for being on the show, Purple.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so I'll start out by having you tell us who you are and what do you do.
Sure. I'm Purple from apurplelife.com, and I retired in 2020 at age 30.
That's awesome. Oh, Purple, what is your background?
I worked in marketing for almost a decade, but if you mean background in other ways, I was born and raised in Georgia, went to a Montessori school and a liberal arts college, and then went out into the world.
Okay. So you retired at the age of 30. Where did you gain your consciousness for financial literacy?
Library books and blogs as well, which is one of the reasons I started my own.
Okay. Because I just found out about financial independence in 2019. So that's amazing to me that you found out so early. Can you describe financial freedom for those who are new to the term?
Sure. I actually don't use the term financial freedom, so I don't really feel comfortable defining it. But like you mentioned, financial independence is when you don't ever have to work for money again. And that's what I say that I'm financially independent, or part of the FIRE community, financially independent, retire early.
Okay. Financially independent. I'm just curious why you don't use the term financial freedom.
So it seems to have been co-opted more and more in recent years by basically scam artists. So for that reason, it's kind of one of those red flag terms now. But luckily, I've always been part of the FIRE movement instead of financial freedom necessarily. So that's just a personal thing.
Okay, that's interesting. So financial independence. So you never have to work for money again. So a lot of people are new to this. I know I was new to it. I just found out about it in 2019. So can you tell us what was your strategy for gaining financial independence, and how long did it take?
Sure. So I tried my best to maximize my income, decrease my spending, all while having the best life possible. Actually, hold on one second. A bird is chirping, so let me just I'll say that again.
It's always something, right?
Well, I know. So my strategy was job hopping for higher salaries, increasing my income, and then also decreasing my expenses while maintaining the same standard of living. So I did that part by doing domestic fuel arbitrage and moving from Manhattan to Seattle. And then just in general, between those two things, I was saving the difference and trying to grow that gap, obviously, investing the difference in broad-based index funds. And the journey took a little bit over 5 years.
Okay. So what specific investments were you in?
I am just in Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund, VTSAX.
Okay. All right. So how are things going now with the COVID epidemic as far as it relates to your finances?
It's going surprisingly well. I'm sure you saw last year the market went up about 20%, which was obviously not expected after it tanked a third.
Right.
So as a result of that, financially, I'm much better than forecast. Also, as a result of COVID and everything else that we had and all the unknowns we had in the world, I decided to save a little bit more cash in addition to the $500,000 I had invested. So I saved 2 years. Oh boy. So I saved 2 years of cash, which was $40,000 in addition to what I had invested. So I've actually been living off of my cash cushion. So I didn't have to worry if the market stayed down for 2 years or so, which is usually the length of the recessions we've had in the past. So that's all. Just a little bit more safety, but overall shockingly, COVID hasn't changed my plan or its success so far.
Okay, that's interesting because for people who are not in the FI community, there are still a large amount of people that are afraid of getting into the stock market. And so I think it's interesting that you already knew about the stock market and that you have financial independence at a very early age. And you said it took a little over 5 years?
Yeah, I actually learned about financial independence through my partner 7 years ago, but I didn't listen to him. So that was 2 years that I could have been saving and investing, but didn't. But hey, I got there eventually. But also at that time, I didn't understand anything about investing myself. So it was those library books and blogs that I taught myself how to invest and how to feel comfortable and how to understand what the stock market actually is instead of it being this big, scary thing that I didn't really get. So it was a process.
That's interesting. So you taught yourself Purple. I think that's great. Can you give us your favorite book or some book recommendations?
Sure. My favorite book is Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez. It talks about money as the literal life that you're giving away to make that money. And realizing that, which is true, really helped put things in perspective for me.
Okay. I've heard of that. I have to check it out.
It's great. Yeah, she recently released a more recent version with like updated numbers since I believe the first one was in the 80s. But a couple of years ago, she put out a new one. Highly recommend.
Okay, Purple. What advice would you give to those who are just starting out on the path to financial independence?
I say to figure out what kind of life you want and save for it. I hear a couple of people saying that they want to slash all their expenses or figure out how to live off, there's a stereotype of rice and beans, but that doesn't sound extremely sustainable. I understand the impulse because it's very exciting when you get into the idea of FIRE and you want to, if you do want to retire as soon as possible. So even I fall into the trap of sometimes being like, well, is this worth my time? Is this worth more time working a job I don't necessarily love? So it can swing too far to one side. So I say just make sure that what you save for is really the entire life you want, a sustainable life.
Okay. And then, Purple, can you share one of your life lessons with us?
Sure. Just kind of like with my hair, my purple hair. Don't be afraid to just do what you want. If you're afraid of judgment, I can tell you that people will judge you anyway, so you might as well be happy.
That sounds good. Okay, Purple, where can people find you if they would like to reach out to you?
Sure. I'm over at purplelife.com. I post what's going on in my early retirement and other random stuff every Tuesday. And you can also find all my social media on there if you're curious. About Instagram, I put on random like movie reviews, way too many pictures of food that I'm eating while traveling around, that kind of stuff. So check me out.
Okay, sounds good, Purple. Thank you for being on the show and sharing your story.
Of course. Thank you for having me.